What's going on, everyone? This video will be a very informative video and I'm super excited to share it with you guys. I'm here with my longtime student Raiden, and this video is going to be the video if this is your very first time training in Filipino martial arts, if it's just another day, another training class, another training session, you want to brush up on the basic fundamentals. This class, this video, I'm going to be going over the universal angle 1 and angle 2. So a lot of different systems compile the family of Kali or Arnis or Eskrima practitioners. And unlike some other martial arts, we can't really trace everything all back to the same person unless you want to count the Filipino national hero himself, Lapu-Lapu, as kind of the head. But with so many different systems come so many different ways that they approach training with the weapons. And one of the things are the counts of basic strikes that each system has. Some of them have 5, some of them have 8, some have 12, 14. Bias Tres Manos has 10. But I would say out of all the systems that I've come to find, and a lot of the systems that have very big differences come to a very similar position, which is having an angle 1 and an angle 2. So basically this is your forehand strike from the top right down to the bottom left as an angle 1, and then the mirrored version from the top left down to the bottom right as an angle 2. Very commonly it's called the X pattern, it's called the infinite strike, it's called the figure 8, or your forehand and backhand motion. Okay, so let's break that down first before I start pulling in Raiden here for some techniques. When you think about an X pattern, it's a diagonal slash and they're mirroring strikes. And with these two strikes, I use this very, very commonly when I introduce Kali to new students or when I teach it at seminars and they don't necessarily train with the sticks. Basically, you have two angles of attack. You either have a forehand attack or a backhand attack. So if I cut myself down the line, my forehand attack is coming from the right side all the way to the center. So it could be up high, it could be mid, it could be down here, but anything coming from this side, we call it a forehand strike. From the center line to my left side, we call this a backhand strike. So using an angle 1 and angle 2, I teach myself the concept of a forehand strike and a backhand strike, and more importantly, a very important principle that we train in our class and in our curriculum here is that the principle of one strike leading to the next. So I don't need to strike, rechamber, strike again. I can feed my angle 1 into my angle 2, back into my 1, into my 2, and I can continue this. And the reason why it's called an infinite strike is because it keeps going. This is what we call a circular strike. Circles have no end. It just keeps going and going and going until I decide to stop or my opponent gives me a reason to stop. Okay, so just with my angle 1 and my angle 2, I already established the orientation of attacks. I've already established a principle of my strike always leads to the next. And it's also going to teach me two positions, an open position and a closed position. Each have their own attributes, each have their own kind of play on what they can do for you. If you guys are interested in that, I made a video a while back. Make sure you check that out. Link is in the description. I'll also put it up here if you guys can see this link. But let's talk about more principles and what we can do with an angle 1 and an angle 2 in application. This is where kind of the money is for a lot of Kali or Filipino martial arts practitioners. So, if me and Raiden are standing in front of each other here, like I said, one of our first principles is one strike leads to the next. But also with my angle 1 and my angle 2 with a partner, I can also learn my second principle, which is my strike is my block and my block is my strike. Now if you take that for face value, basically what that means is, if Raiden gives me an angle 1, I give an angle 1. And we should be able to intercept each other in a way where I might have a chance of blocking it. If I do an angle 2 to an angle 2, my strike is my block is my strike. Same motion, different intent. So we'll keep it at face value for now. So with these two, I now understand how to create reference points. And for a lot of systems and a lot of curriculums, you will work off of an angle 1, and you'll start grappling, you'll start your disarms, all of that. Or from an angle 2, the same concept. You'll start your disarms from that process there. So understanding how to get there and what is available from each section, either from an angle 1 or an inside line, or an angle 2 or an outside line, I can then start to work my other techniques. But if we go a little further, a little deeper than face value to the principle of my strike is my block and my block is my strike, it doesn't necessarily work like that. So we count angle 1 and angle 2 as slashes. They're follow-through strikes, and by nature they will not stop. Even without winding it up and really kind of wheeling the stick, it's not going to be able to be stopped. Because you're twisting your body, you're going from an open position to a closed position, and you're following through. So if I were to strike like this with intent, there's no way that your angle 1 is going to stop my angle 1 at face value. But if we turn the tables a little bit, and I touch base on this on quite a few videos, to get that reference point, in order to expose his arm, I can strike and cause a reaction, and from here I can start working. All Raiden can do is really defend, decide if you put a stick there or not. But let's go even deeper than that. Let's go into sparring. So a lot of the times with the stick, we represent the sword via the stick. Right? Obviously it's not safe to train with live swords, but a lot of the techniques, a lot of the lines we can use with the stick. So we have a concept that we call dissecting the line. Each angle is a line. You give me an angle 1, I can dissect this line. You give me an angle 2, I can dissect this line, dependent on my range, my timing, and my intention. So if we look at an angle 1, especially in sparring, a lot of times in sparring, pretty much from waist up is good to go for us. A lot of times you'll have a lot of hand points. So if I cut your arm, if I hit your arm, that counts as a point. So basically what I'm trying to do is try to understand the range, and if I use my strike as my block, and my block is my strike, slowly when that angle 1 comes, rather than going to the stick, I'm going to go for the hand. Right? Some say that the stick represents the hand in training. In this case, this is my sword, and I cut through that line. So I alter my angle 1 just enough that it's not going to meet him like a generic angle 1 to a generic angle 1. He gives me an angle 1 up here, I can zone and hit, and when I do that, I dissect the line that he gives. And this gives me an idea of what can be done to an angle 1 and an angle 2 using the same techniques back to you. But again, if I do the same thing, all we're going to do is hit each other's sticks, because we both have the same idea. But I'm not trying to hit your stick anymore. I'm trying to hit your hand, because I know you're going to give me a forehand strike. And even better, if I know you're going to give me an angle 1, I know how to orient myself much better, or much clearer. Okay, so you can do the same thing from an angle 1. I can dissect the line here. If he gives me an angle 2, I dissect the line here. And I can slap down. One of the key things you want to find, you want to be quicker than your opponent, you want to be one step in front of your opponent, multiple steps if possible, and you want to be able to dictate the pace. Okay, if I see you chambered in a backhand position or a closed position, you're going to give me a backhand strike. No matter if it's up here, if it's sideways, or if it's down here, if I'm in the right position and he decides to strike, so go from good, and I hit the hand, I already beat you to it. So that's me dissecting the line. And you can see that with just an angle 1 and angle 2. It can go on and on and on and on. So a very quick application sparring technique. Okay, we'll go very, very slow. From the angle 1, I'm going to zone and hit it, that line. Make sure I cut through, following through with my shoulder and hip. Very commonly from an angle 1 or a forehand strike, they're going to follow up with a backhand strike. And I hit off to the side again. So I'm going to go 1 and 2, regardless of what he gives back. And I know I can do that because he commits to the angle 1 chambering in a closed position. Okay? Let me show you that from the other side so you can see it slowly. He feeds an angle 1, I cut his angle 1. Feeds me angle 2, I cut his angle 2. Okay, and that can obviously change. I can go from the hand up to the head, wherever I want to strike, really. But there's a lot of things that can be taught with an angle 1 and an angle 2. It's pretty much your money makers that I call them when it comes to introducing yourself into Filipino martial arts. All of the, crazy strikes and all of the fancy circular motions like this, that's all good and it has a place in time, but really if you master your angle 1 and your angle 2, it's a very difficult thing to stop. And I'm very, very firm on fundamentals. I don't need, my arcos and my terapilons to be able to hit you. I just have to understand how to correctly apply an angle 1 and an angle 2 in various situations, in various representations of it. Generic, zoning away, maybe a little more tight, changing levels, making sure that it can be circular or linear in one line, right? And from that, I should have enough to kind of hold my own. Of course, when it comes to a trained martial artist versus another trained martial artist, that may not apply as clearly. But you can see from an angle 1 and angle 2, if you just focus on that, you focus on the small things. And my whole thing with my students is I try to tell them to look at everything in every little fraction from so many different perspectives and see how you can improve something as basic as an angle 1 or an angle 2. And when you do that, you'll be able to expand your game because there's only so many ways you can strike, but there's an infinite amount of ways you can put it together. And there's an infinite amount of ways of how you can alter the strike, depending on if you're going to twist more here, what are you aiming for? What's the context of the situation, of the fight? Is it sparring? Is it self-defense? So on and so forth. Is this a knife? Is this a sword? Is this a baton? Is this an umbrella? And the list goes on and on and on, right? So angle 1 and angle 2. If this was your first lesson in Filipino martial arts, this is probably the best thing that you can stick to. And from there, you start your journey and you continue and learn all the different techniques. Put that in your toolbox, but really take angle 1 and angle 2 as basic as it is and treat it the way that we treat it. And you'll be able to see everything in that same perspective and your game will just expand tremendously. So if you guys enjoyed this, make sure that you guys subscribe. Breaking down fundamentals, giving you guys things that I love to do personally, things that I love to teach personally, and pretty much everything in between. So if you did enjoy the video, also give this a thumbs up. I do appreciate it very greatly. And until next time, catch you guys there.